All right, so we're in. We are recording. This is the Battle Camp in 2021. So look, I haven't made a video in a few days. So really quickly, you can obviously see on your screen, I have a guest with me. Before I introduce my honorable guest, I just quickly want to say a couple of things. Firstly, thank you for tuning in. My target for 2020 was to have 500 subscribers, and we have surpassed that because I have 600 and something. It keeps fluctuating, but it's around 600. So I exceeded my own hopes and aspirations for last year, which is good. So this year we're aiming for over 1,000. So keep watching, keep supporting. And if you're not aware, you can listen to these shows in audio only format. So all of the links for all the podcast formats are down in the description. So I've got my friend here, Connor, who I met in the barbershop, 2 months ago? A month? Well, I can't even remember. When was that? When we was both getting a trim together?
Yeah, I think it's like the beginning of December, just before we went into lockdown again.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You were going to a wedding, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was my brother's wedding. Yeah, so it's his 1 month anniversary today, actually. So,
there you go.
So it was a few days before. What's the date? December 11th. So yeah, so it was like December 6th or something like that. We met each other.
Yeah, man.
And got talking about MMA, and then I felt like I pulled that day because we swapped Twitter addresses and that. And we've been talking MMA ever since. So how you doing, Connor? You all right?
Yeah, good, man. Good. I think everyone in the barbershop was talking about football, which is a typical barbershop conversation.
Yeah.
And then I thought, you know what, I've got nothing to add here. I've got nothing to talk about on football. So let me try and switch it up, see if anyone knows anything about mixed martial arts. And
did you start it off? Did you?
Yeah. Because
I was around the corner. I was in that bit around the corner, so I didn't know how it all started, sort of thing.
Yeah. Me and the barber know a few fighters together and stuff like that. Got a few mutual friends, and I thought, you know what, let me try and bring this up and talk about something that I actually know a little bit about, at least.
All right, cool. All right, so actually, no, before we get into the actual conversation, because there's a lot to talk about, we got a fight coming up this Saturday. Quickly, just talk a little bit about your Twitter, your social media, your own podcast and stuff like that. So just let people know.
Yeah. I'm pretty active on Twitter, so I've got the at FightingTalk2. I think Fighting Talk was taken by like Channel 5. They did like a boxing thing years and years ago. But yeah, so I've got the Fighting Talk 2.
It's still active. You should try and see if you can take that over.
Yeah, I was thinking that, but that was predominantly boxing. I think I went on their YouTube channel, and I think they haven't done like a video for 10 years or something. So I just thought, you know what, just stick a 2 at the end, and then I can't get done for plagiarism or something, But just, at Fighting Talk 2, I've got a podcast and YouTube channel similar to yourself, So just, check me out.
You've uploaded your first one, haven't you? Your first, you had it with that health. What is his? Is a therapist, some sort of massage therapist?
Yeah, he's a massage therapist. Yeah. A good friend of mine, Paul Jarman. He helps with the guys over at London Shoot Fighters, based in West London. There's a few good fighters there. A couple of UFC fighters, Bellator fighters, and stuff like that. A few guys coming up on the regional circuits. So he's their masseuse. So that's a pretty high pressure job from him. But no, we had a little chat. We've been good friends for a while, and I'll definitely be getting him on the show in the future. Some really good feedback on that as well. And he's got a very knowledgeable man, so it'd be good to have him on.
Yeah, no, I found that very interesting. I was lucky enough to get a sneak preview, wasn't I, before you uploaded it? So that's why I wasn't sure if you had uploaded it yet or not. But I really enjoyed it, man. It was interesting. It was nice listening to someone kind of behind the scenes that's in the game, sort of thing. So it was good to get his perspective. And also the next one you're going to do with him about cuts and whatnot, that's one that I'd really looking forward to, because I'd like to just hear some stories and during fights and stuff.
Yeah. Although he is a trained massage therapist and stuff. He loves MMA. He used to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu himself, and he's been around these fights for such a long time that he just fell into being a cut man as well. More on like the regional circuits, the smaller events.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see as many injuries on the smaller events because the refs are quite quick to pull them out. If it's your debut, they're not going to let you get completely Nate Diaz'd and cuts all over your face and stuff. It's not going to happen. Yeah.
Cool. All right, I'm going to put a link. I'm going to send me the link to your podcast on YouTube after this on WhatsApp, and I'll stick it in the description for this video. So if anyone's interested,
thank you very much.
Go and check it out. All right. So just quickly, we've had a couple of weeks off of MMA. We've had a few boxing matches here and there, but we've had a couple of weeks off MMA. But the MMA world hasn't really slept. I've taken a little bit of a break, but now we've got Max Holloway against Calvin Kattar. And I don't know about you, mate, but I'm fucking well excited about this fight. Not just because it's a big, good fight, an exciting kind of, on paper, it looks like it's going to be an exciting fight, but also I think the card starts at like 3 o'clock our time, 3 p.m. our time. It'll be done by like 11 p.m. or something.
I think that's the midweek card. I think the Magny Chiesa card starts at 2 p.m. I think this one starts at like 6.
6 p.m. All right,
Yeah,
so it's still a reasonable time for us then.
It's still a reasonable time, yeah, definitely.
Compared to what we're used to. All right, so look, I'll pass over to you first on this one. Max Holloway, Calvin Kattar, just what is your kind of view going into the fight of both of the fighters? Where are they at the moment in their career, and how do you see this fight playing out?
It's a really tough one to call. You know, Max is an absolute legend, and he can take a serious amount of blows. I don't think he's ever been dropped in a UFC bout. I think Dustin Poirier was the only person that came close to mildly sitting him down, but he never actually got him to the floor. And he's still very, very young as well, you know, because he's been in the game for such a long time and he's the previous champion and stuff. People assume that he's a lot older than he is. Do you know what I mean? But
he's in age-wise, he's young, but he's a young vet, basically. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's a veteran, but he's just not very old, sort of thing. He's been doing it so long.
Exactly. Similar to Jose Aldo. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's not that old in mixed martial arts, but in terms of what he's achieved in his career so far, he is obviously quite old in the game. You know, but Calvin Kattar is coming off of a few fantastic fights and a few very, very good wars as well. So it's a real pick 'em for me, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be an absolute 1-2 fest from both of them. There's going to be a lot of shots fired from both sides, and it will just be a who wants it more kind of thing when it comes to the end. You know, How about yourself? What's your predictions?
Well, like, look, I think Calvin Kattar is predominantly a boxer, so I'll give Max Holloway the advantage in terms of just being a more well-rounded mixed martial artist. I'll give Calvin the advantage in terms of speed, and I think he has a better variation of combinations when it comes to boxing, whereas Max Holloway, I think, uses his elbows, knees, kicks better than Calvin Kattar does. So where I say Calvin Kattar, I think, has a better speed advantage, I think Max Holloway, one of his biggest strengths is kind of fight management and also managing distance between him and his opponent. And I think Max Holloway will have a significant reach advantage over Calvin Kattar. So it will be on Calvin Kattar to try and get in and land. And Max Holloway will try and catch him on the way in and be able to try and kind of stay on the end of the punches that Calvin Kattar is going to throw. So he misses and he's able to counter strike effectively. I think it's an interesting fight. I can't see a lot of it spent in grappling exchanges or Max Holloway trying to take Calvin Kattar down. I don't think Max Holloway is scared of getting involved in a scrap with Calvin Kattar. And I've heard people talk about how I think I was listening to Josh Thompson and Big John McCarthy's podcast, and they were talking about how they think that Max Holloway needs to take him down early doors. I don't agree with that necessarily. What do you think?
I don't know. It's not really Max's game, is it? You know, he's good. Exactly like you say, you know, he's a very good all-rounder. Do you know what I mean? He's a very good mixed martial artist. And whatever way Calvin takes the fight, I think they'll both be able to see it through as well. The one thing we don't have to worry about, and no one will speak about, is either of them gassing. Because both of them have absolutely fantastic cardio.
Yeah.
You know, there's obviously other fighters in the UFC and in different promotions and stuff that you just think, right, they need to get them out of there in the first and second round, otherwise they're going to gas when they get to the championship rounds. But after, you know, the battle with Volkanovski twice for Max Holloway, you can see that he's more than happy to go the distance as well. So I think it will go the distance, and it will be one of these kind of like chess matches between the two of them, you know, going blow for blow and just trying to play it smart as well from both sides. But I hope it doesn't. I hope they don't go too smart.
Where do you see Calvin Kattar's advantages in this then? Does he have any advantages from your point of view?
Definitely the boxing. Definitely, as you say, definitely the boxing, you know. But I think Max is very smart, and he'll be very smart to that. It really just depends what they've been practicing in camp. Obviously, they've been watching loads of tape on each other as well, which will be equally difficult from both sides. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be hard to pick holes in either game.
Yeah. I don't know. So I'll give you my prediction first, and then you can give yours. So I just think I think it can go either two ways, and this isn't me copying out or sitting on the wall, but I think Calvin Kattar has more of a potential to hurt Max Holloway than Max Holloway does of hurting Calvin Kattar. I think Calvin Kattar throws with a lot more power and venom, and if he's able to land, I can see this fight being a little bit like how Dustin Poirier against Max Holloway was, where Max Holloway might have been throwing with more volume, but the more meaningful kind of damaging strikes were coming from Dustin Poirier. I think Calvin Kattar is capable of putting on that kind of fight against Max Holloway. I just think Max Holloway is too much of a veteran, and I was very, very impressed. I honestly thought when he after the first fight with Volkanovski, I thought that was Max Holloway done, and I didn't think that he could do what he did in the second fight. And I know on paper he lost, but I didn't think he could make the improvements in the short amount of time during these COVID pandemic times. Do you know what I mean? Where training was significantly different to what it would have been if it wasn't during COVID. I just think that Max Holloway is just too intelligent, and I think his team will put together a game plan that will allow him to use his strengths in measuring distance and being able to stay at the end of Calvin Kattar's punches and putting together the right combinations to counter strike and just win the fight. And I wouldn't even be surprised if it's a late stoppage for, in Max Holloway's favor. So that's how I think Max Holloway wins the fight personally. How about yourself?
Well, you never know. It might be so close that it could be a draw, because I thought at the back end of 2020, I thought we saw loads and loads of draws for some reason.
Those were free rounders,
quite big cards.
Like, you're more likely to see a draw in a free rounder, innit? Like, just less rounds. But you're right. We did see more draws. But yeah, no, that's so. Is that what you're going for? Is that what you're calling it?
No, that's like an 80-1. I'm never gonna go for a draw in a fight. I think Kattar gets it done. I think he went. Yeah. I think he gets it by split decision. As you say, he's got a little bit more power. I think Max. It really depends, man. Like you said, they've had a change up of how they've been practicing and how their camp's been. I know that Max was very vocal about him being on Zoom and doing like Zoom sparring and stuff like that.
Did you believe that? I thought he was fucking chatting shit. I thought he was, because he was meant to be, social distancing and stuff. I just thought he was like making out like he'd done it on Zoom, but really he was just training how he normally would have trained.
Well, you just don't know, I mean, me and Paul discussed this on my channel the other day about fighters sparring less because they don't need to get hit so much. Yeah. You can spar, you can do your wrestling, you can do your BJJ and stuff like that and work on your groundwork. But with regards to actually physically getting hit in the face all the time, you probably don't need to do it so much.
Yep. Yeah.
But I think Kattar takes it on a split decision, to be honest with you.
So when you say split decision, obviously it means, you think it will be a razor close fight. So you're kind of predicting like a 3-2 situation.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, it all depends on who the judges are. Do you know what I mean? Because they can really, really sway the fight. If we see some of the Saudi Amatos and stuff like that come out and just completely sway it, watching a completely different fight to everyone else. But hopefully, if it is more of a boxing bout, a kickboxing bout, etc., then they'll all be actually tuning in because they're all predominantly boxing judges anyway. So it really depends on who the judges are to how the fight can go and how razor close people see it.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, because that is a lot of the time why we get lopsided or decisions where we're like scratching our heads thinking what the is going on here, is because it's a boxing judge essentially judging an MMA fight. So fair enough. All right, so we've gone separate ways here. So I'll catch up with you on WhatsApp on fight night. we'll see who was right. So I just quickly wanted to touch on, because it's quite it's a nice little kind of nice card to ease us into this next week, because obviously we've got 3 fight cards. This one isn't kind of the most stacked card that you're ever going to see, but there are a little kind of, there's a few fighters on there that I'm personally interested in watching. And one fight that I'm actually kind of most intrigued about, I wouldn't say I'm looking forward to the most, I'm just intrigued about a lot, is Matt Brown against Carlos Condit. Mm-hmm. Because if this fight had happened 5 years ago, Carlos Condit was operating at maybe 5 years as I get jumbled up in my memory, but around the time when Carlos Condit fought GSP, I don't know how many years ago that was. But he was operating at the top of the division. He fought Nick Diaz and then he fought GSP. And Matt Brown has always been like this guy that was kind of top 10 to 15 kind of range. And then he had this kind of short-lived run where he got 3 or 4 wins in a row. And then I think Donald Cerrone knocked him out, I think, if I'm not mistaken. That was kind of his step up fight to fight like an elite guy in the welterweight division. The reason why I'm going on about all of this is both of these guys are both veterans, similar sort of age, but it just feels like Carlos Condit has always been operating at a higher level than Brown. But now, I don't know whether it's because Carlos Condit, just off of his the reputation he's built for himself and his most recent performances, it feels like he's kind of, his levels really dropped way below what he was once capable of. And Brown, although he's declined, I don't think he's declined as much. So where we were here, in terms of Carlos Condit and Brown, I kind of feel like we're kind of at a more even level. So if this happened 5 years ago, Carlos Condit wins all day long for me. But now I just feel like the decline that I feel like I've seen in Carlos Condit means that it's a more of a even fight. So this fight has come at a good time for Brown, in my opinion. So I think this might be another fight where we see Carlos Condit take an L. And this will, if Carlos Condit loses this fight, then it's definitely time to call it quits, because Brown's a guy that he would never have lost to when he was in his prime. So that's why I'm interested in the fight. Do you have any thoughts about this particular fight?
To be honest with you, I get why people like the nostalgic kind of view of these kind of like late 30-year-olds fighting, especially when it's on like a co-main or something. But there's so many fighters that are coming through the ranks that not necessarily on age. Do you know what I mean? I'm not an ageist, but at the end of the day, people that have been in the game for such a long time just settle down a little bit. Do you know what I mean? I don't want it. I think the UFC is kind of doesn't want to turn into Bellator. Bellator is known for having like two 45-year-olds on a main event, and it just kind of bums out. But it's a shame when legends keep fighting and carrying on and you just keep collecting the L's. Do you know what I mean? BJ Penn, perfect example. He used to be such a legend, and then it's almost like he's had two careers. I think he's like 9-1 in his past 10 fights. I don't want to see that. Do you know what I mean? The MMA purists, they don't want to see that kind of thing.
I get what you're saying. I appreciate what you're saying, and I understand your point of view. But for me personally, I mean, I'd consider myself, I hate the term, but a hardcore, MMA fan. But I'm someone that, like, I watch prelims, right? But I don't necessarily get excited about a matchup if I don't know who the fuck the two guys are. Like, they might be genuinely good talents, and there might be people that deserve this spot on a card, but I'd much rather watch Matt Brown and Carlos Condit fight each other, just because I know the history, I know their past, I've watched their interviews, I've seen them grow and peak and then now decline, sort of thing. I don't know, I just need to know something about the guy or girl that I'm watching fight, sort of thing. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm with you. But so like 2020, obviously we had people like Chimaev come onto the scene, right? But he came out of nowhere. But now everyone knows who he is. So all those people that you're kind of dismissing on the prelims are going to be the people that will be fighting on the main card in a couple of months, depending on how their runs go. You know, who they fight and what kind of time they fight. Israel Adesanya is a perfect example as well. He kind of came into the game. I think he's only been in the UFC for 2 years, and look at where he is now. I remember watching him on the prelims, and now he's heading main events, making the big bucks and fighting the big guys.
I get it. Like, but look, for the cream's always going to rise, right? So the Chimaevs of this world came out of nowhere, but the way he's been fighting and just his persona and the fact that he done that quick turnaround the first time he fought on Fight Island, and Israel Adesanya, when he first his debut, I still remember when he pulled out his imaginary cock and had a piss on the cage before he went inside. Like, the actual like stars are going to become. So Conor McGregor's a prime example. Do you know what I mean? Like, he was destined to be a star, right? Like, the cream's always going to rise to the top. But then you got to fight. The UFC is an organization with the biggest mid card you're ever going to see, right? There's literally 400 of the fighters are all mid carders, like guys that you can take or leave. You might not have heard of them. You might have, like, there's so many different fighters. Like, when we was talking the other day, when Gavin Tucker was fighting, Gavin Tucker beat that geezer, I forget his name now. The guy with the tattoos, Gavin Tucker. And I was like, oh shit, I know this guy. I like it. I like the way he fights. Like, I'd watched him fight twice and I didn't know his name. It's only until he came on the screen and I saw him, I was like, oh shit. Like, I know who this guy is, but I didn't know his name. Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
there's
I'm with
so
you.
many
Yeah.
of those type of guys for me personally. I suppose that's why I like it when I know who's fighting when I'm watching. But who do you think is going to win this fight anyway? Carlos Condit and Brown. Do you care? Do you even care?
You know what? I like watching people fight. You know, and I'm a fan of MMA, and I'm a fan of fighters and
Yeah.
people fighting. You know,
Mm,
I don't necessarily. We obviously see quite a lot of people with like fanboys for certain fighters, etc. But I just like watching people fight. Do you know what I mean? Whatever way that goes, I'm not emotionally invested in that particular fight. For instance,
yeah.
whatever way that goes, as long as it's entertaining,
Hmm.
I'm more than I'm there for it. You know.
Mm. All right. Cool. So you don't want to pick. You don't have a pick on that. You're not.
Nah,
Don't
I'm
give a
not.
shit.
Nah, not really too. Condit's probably the name that I know the most.
Ah.
You know, because I know of his history a little bit more. But equally as much, I'm not overly as fussed. You know, unless it's someone like Cobb Swanson, who's more. He's a better fighter to me. You know, do you know what I mean?
Mm,
Like he means more to me than Condit does.
I feel what you're saying. All right. Cool. So what are you looking forward to then, apart from the main event?
The Whacking Buckley fight. He's fighting an Italian guy. I cannot remember the name, and I don't want to butcher his pronunciation. But
I'll try. I've got the Wikipedia page open. So it's Alicio de Chiricchio, I assume. I
the
think.
Jericho, yeah,
That's it.
the Jericho. We're going to go
Chris
with that one.
Jericho.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Obviously, Joaquin Buckley had a rocky start to 2020 when he got knocked out by Holland. Naturally, Holland went 5-0 in the year anyway, which
Mm,
was no drama for him. But to take that L and then to come back, obviously, he had the knockout of the year, which I think was a knockout of the year for everyone. I don't think there was any kind of arguments on his little catch the kick, spinning round, knock him in the. It was just glorious. I remember watching it live, and then I think I showed
oh,
everyone that I even knew, and
uh,
it was just it was just a work of art.
yeah.
But no, I'm looking
I
forward
was actually
to.
shocked. I was shocked how viral that went. Like, obviously, it deserved it, but I was surprised at. I don't know. I just thought it would be like a little MMA thing that we'd get excited about. I didn't think it would,
Yeah,
explode the way it did.
yeah, no, and I think that's obviously it puts a lot of pressure on a fighter as well.
Mm,
I've seen a lot of interviews with Buckley, and he says, he was like a viral sensation. He went from having 2,000 followers to 1.2 million or some shit, and
mm,
it's
mm, mm.
it can put a lot of pressure on a fighter as well. But then he came out and got a W, straight after in a good fashion as well. So it'd be good to see how his career progresses in 2021. So that's the fight that I'm looking forward to as well, because he's still an up and comer, and he's one of those people that you might not have seen. You might have seen him in the Holland fight and thought, "Wow, he's just taken a massive L." His mouth guard came out, there was dribble on the floor, and he got royally knocked out. But then he made a turn for it, and he can kind of he got knocked out, but he's getting back on the horse and he's really putting the work in, And he's a unit as well, he's built.
Yeah,
Not that defines a good fighter, but he's in very, very good physical condition.
stocky. He's like Rhino. Do you remember Rhino from Gladiators?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
He's got that kind of physique to him, and it like
yeah,
small, but
yeah,
like a bulldog almost. Yeah. Do you know
yeah.
anything about his opponent? I've never heard of him personally.
Italian guy. I think he's got like 4 losses. I think he's coming off of 3 straight losses. I think so. It might be a good matchup for him. Might be a good matchup for Buckley to bounce off of this success and get another win. But then at the same time, it might be good for the other guy to get a win as well.
Yeah.
Maybe there's more riding on it.
Well, I mean, he's fought. He's been in the UFC for the last. He won Ultimate Fighter apparently. So I didn't know that, but yeah, he won Ultimate Fighter. He actually lost to quite Kevin Holland as well. Kevin Holland,
Yeah, yeah,
Zach Cummings. All right, yeah, I've never heard like there's so many of these guys. Like I was saying before, I've never heard of this
all
Italian.
the
So
mid card guys.
yeah, but it feels like this is a fight that the UFC. It's almost like a boxing booking a little bit with Buckley coming off 2 wins, a KO of the year, and stuff like that. You'd expect for them to book him up, but they're not. They're kind of booking him down to help him get the experience, I suppose, he needs, sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, as we've spoken about it before, lots of the fights being made are through social media. Who's the loudest on social media and stuff like that, and who? Yeah, it does get a bit annoying when fighters just keep fighting people that are below them all the time.
Mm.
But then their time will come and they'll make the right decisions and hopefully and go from there. But then it's unfortunate because 2 years down the line, when he's got a good stretch, people just say he's got a padded record because all he's beaten is people that have coming off losses.
Yeah, but I don't really have a problem too much with organizations managing their fighters in a way that is in a way that helps the fighter himself or herself get the type of experience they need to become the best version of themselves. It's almost like Sage Northcutt. Remember him?
Hmm.
He was going to be, or he was looking like he was going to be, a major star within the organization, and he wasn't even really matched up against top 10 opponents, really.
No.
He was matched up against people that weren't a good matchup for him, and he got exposed pretty quickly after. I think he got a contract off the Contender Series, didn't he?
Hmm.
So, I mean, that's one thing that I'm not a fan of with the UFC. So I'm quite open, unless it obviously if it goes on for fucking ever, then there's a problem, isn't there? But if there's nothing wrong with giving a fighter that you think has the potential to progress to be at the top of a division favorable fights as they're developing, in my opinion. And I don't know if this fight is that for Buckley or not, but yeah.
No, it's similar to Israel Adesanya. Like we say, 2 years ago, no one really knew who it was unless you were watching the kickboxing scene in New Zealand or something. And then all of a sudden, he's really really rise to the top and fighting the best guys. Similar to Darren Till as well. Darren Till almost came out of nowhere, and then he was fighting some pretty decent guys, knocked out Cerrone, and then all of a sudden he started taking a load of L's as well. So
yeah. No, it's true because Darren Till, I mean, I remember I used to, because at work I used to always every Monday listen to or Tuesday actually, because the Ariel Hawani show used to come on Monday, and then Tuesday at my laptop I'd be listening to it. And I remember Darren Till, and it was the first time I'd ever even heard of him. And he was talking about, moving to Brazil and stuff. And I was like, that's a mad story. A Scouser in Brazil. Like, what's he doing there, sort of thing? Do you know what I mean? And then I didn't even see him fight that weekend. He was talking about a fight that he was going to have. And then when I heard of him again was actually when he fought Donald Cerrone, because he was fighting undercard prelims and stuff like that. He had 3 or 4 fights in the UFC, but I just hadn't physically, or I hadn't remembered watching him fight, sort of thing. So yeah, he exploded off the back of that as well, didn't he? So.
And I think the knockout from Masvidal shot Masvidal up even further into the casual's mind as well, because casuals didn't know who Masvidal was. Unless you're watching him in the backyard stuff like 10 years ago, you wouldn't have really known too much about him, unless you are an MMA hardcore, of course. But him fighting Till in London and getting a spectacular knockout as well kind of pushed him to the forefront of everyone's mind.
But was it the knockout of Till, or was it the fucking 2-piece and a soda afterwards? What I think that done more for him than the actual knockout. The whole night overall was a big W for him. But I think the thing with Leon Edwards was the thing that went more viral from what I remember anyway.
Yeah, the 2-piece and soda was definitely a good catchphrase at the time. It's like he said the perfect thing at the perfect moment.
Yeah, and after doing a madness.
Yeah, exactly. And his ruthlessness as well. And he's very, whatever his political views are, but he's a very realist kind of person. He comes from very, very humble beginnings. And if someone's giving him shit in the locker room, he's going to go and knock them out. Like, he doesn't care. Do you know what I mean? Which is, a blessing and a curse, really, because it can put you in a lot of shit with the organization as well.
Yeah, and situations that are easily avoidable. But if you've got that mindset, sometimes your ego won't allow you to walk away from a situation that you can walk away from. The thing that I remember the most about that is actually the way he was sat there in a white tracksuit with the zip all the way open, but no t-shirt underneath. And I don't know why that always sticks out in my mind, because in my head it's like, wear a t-shirt, man. Like, do you know what I mean? He just wear it with a zip all the way open. Like I don't know. It was almost like a character from WWF, like back in the day, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
No, definitely. And I think so many of these fighters have personas as well, that they need to uphold, and they need to kind of be this character. Do you know what I mean? And it does almost come across a little bit kind of WWE and
contrived, didn't it? Yeah,
presence and stuff, and it annoys me a little bit, because just go out there and fight, man. Just go out there and fight. Do what you got to do? Do you know what I mean? If you want to spout a little bit of shit to the fighter beforehand, get in their head. Obviously, that's a big part of quite a lot of fighters' games now, is to get in the head of the other person. But don't turn it into like a clown show. Do you know what I mean? This isn't Fight Circus.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, fighters are in a bit of a catch-22, aren't they? Because they're told, oh no, you got to go and sell yourself, you got to get out there, you got to market yourself, and this, that, and the other. You got to get a big social media following, etc., etc., etc. But to me, the best way to do that is by just being yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because sooner or later, if you're being a character, you're gonna be found out. Like, we're gonna be able to tell. Do you know what I mean? As fans, like you and me, we're gonna be able to tell. Like Kobe Covington is a prime example. He's a guy that says things for a reaction. He's like a Twitter. He's a full-time Twitter troll, basically, isn't he? So
Yeah.
like the things that he does aren't necessarily always his own opinion or his own beliefs or how he would actually behave or act, you know, in a given situation, sort of thing. And that's what I hate the most when it comes to fighters trying to, you know, get some sort of following or whatever.
Yeah,
I
no,
can't
completely.
live with that.
Yeah, and I haven't got time for that kind of stuff. You know, when Brock Lesnar came over and he was, you know, just shouting, screaming after the fights and stuff like that, it was so pot on and
Spit coming down his mouth and that.
yeah, I don't like that kind of thing. You know, Chael Sonnen and Tito Ortiz, these kind of guys, man, like they're good fighters. They've had good runs, they've had good legacies and stuff like that. But don't turn it into a joke. Do you know what I mean?
Mm. But to be fair, one thing that I did enjoy about Brock Lesnar is when he beat Frank Mir and his kind of when Joe Rogan was interviewing him and he was like, I'm gonna drink a Coors Light because the thing was sponsored by Bud Light because Bud Light ain't paying me, and then hopefully I get on top of my wife tonight. For me, that was him just being himself, innit? And I quite enjoyed his enjoy that about Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, and then his quick retreat when he went to the post fight presser as well, and he was like, no, I'm going to drink a Bud Light because Bud Light's the best.
Yeah, I remember that. Do you ever remember him on Ultimate Fighter when he tried to do did you ever watch that film with Al Pacino and is it Michael, not Michael Fox, who's the black guy, the actor? He used to be a comedian, he can sing, he does everything. Jamie Foxx. Jamie Foxx, yeah. Jamie Foxx, yeah. So there was a film about like Any Given Sunday, it was called, about American football. And Al Pacino is like the manager of the football team. And he gives the team a speech about I'm trying to make chicken soup out of chicken shit, like talking to his players, right? But it was kind of like inspirational in the film. And then in the Ultimate Fighter, Brock Lesnar, he was the captain of one of the teams, and he's sitting there and he just stole the speech off of Al Pacino, and he's giving the same. I don't know if nobody made a big thing of it at the time, but I remember watching it thinking, I've heard this somewhere. And then it was fucking Al Pacino. It was Al Pacino from Any Given Sunday. But yeah.
Oh, fair play to him. You know, stealing the good lines. You know, he's not stealing the dregs of the film world. You know, he's stealing some good stuff.
Yeah. Well, actually, you know what? This is actually quite a good segue because one of the things that I did want to talk to you about is Nick and Nate Diaz. So we was talking about, you know, characters within MMA and fighters that have a certain type of persona, etc., etc. And Nick and Nate Diaz's name has been coming up. I mean, I've been keeping an eye on, you know, what Dana White's been saying over the last week or so. And I don't know word for word, and I should have pulled up the article for it, but he had a Q&A on Facebook or something like that, ESPN Live or something like that, where he was asked about Nick and Nate Diaz. And he said that he'd like to see Nate Diaz fight next year, but he's not sure if that's going to be feasible. And he said about Nick Diaz, he said, if you're a fan, you shouldn't want to see him fight because he's always out clubbing and stuff, and he's not really there. I know he's been training over the last couple of months, effectively saying that Nick Diaz isn't in the right place mentally and physically to be fighting in the UFC again. So I suppose the question is, do you want to see them fight again? If so, against who? If not, why?
You know, I was thinking about this while you were talking, and I don't think that people like that have spent so long out of the game and just come back for the odd fight here and there or get, you know, suspended for drug use and stuff like that. I don't think they should come back, especially at their ages as well. You know, they're not old, but they're the old era of fighters. Do you know what I mean? They're that old style of fighters. And I don't think, for one, you know, is Nick going to come back and just be completely dominated because the game has evolved so much, and has he necessarily evolved with the game? That would be one of the first questions I'd ask. You know what I mean? But Nate as well.
So let's just talk about Nick first, and then Nick, because they're different. They're in different places in life and in their career, right? So let's not put them both together. So Nick first. So go on, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't want to see him fight again. To be honest with you, he's the old hat, and I think the game has completely changed.
Okay.
I don't think that the drug use and party and stuff like that. People get to a certain age, and you think, are you just going to come back for one big fight, take a loss, and then disappear forever again, or get done for peds again, or something like that? I don't like that kind of stuff. I think if this is your job and this is your livelihood, just do it properly, make your money, and get out. Do you know what I mean? Make your money and get out and retire. Do what you have to do. It's all the stuff outside of the octagon and in their social lives and stuff like that that annoys me more than their actual performances in the octagon. But that's just Nick. But Nate is a similar sort of thing. His fight for the BMF belt, which came out of nowhere. They were just talking about it on Twitter and having a little beef on social media and stuff, and then all of a sudden he's in a main event for fighting for probably quite good money as well, and fighting someone that had a good trajectory as well.
Well,
and then
Nate's the one that called Jorge out. Like, yeah. Like, so Nate was the guy that was providing the red panty night. That he was the A side that night. Do you know what I mean? So people forget that
he was sorting his own pockets out. Fighting someone that was was it East Coast versus West Coast, and they made a big thing about it and stuff like that. It was a fantastic fight, but he's got so much scar tissue. He's so much all around his face, around his eyes, and everything. He's just going to start bleeding straight away. He just needs to be jabbed twice, and that's it. All of a sudden, his eyebrows opened up and stuff like that. I think when a fighter gets to that point, settle down. Do you know what I mean? Settle down. Do your little Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes with the kids, or high school, whatever he does. He does some stuff on the side, which is fantastic. But just stick to that kind of stuff. I don't want to see either of them fight. I think there's more exciting fighters coming through, and more exciting fighters that I want to see that I don't know about yet. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, fine. All right. So you don't want to see either of them come back at all?
No, man. No. I want to see people like Cyril Gane fight again. I want to see Buckley fight, Holland fight. I'd much rather see Holland fight, someone that I've never heard of, than watch like a Nick or Nate Diaz fight.
Interesting.
What about you?
I'm like totally the opposite, man. Totally the opposite. Like, I've always been a fan, innit? I've always been a fan of Nick and Nate Diaz. I've been a fan of what they stand for in terms of not just bending over or jumping when the UFC say to jump, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? And I've always been, ever since that time Dana White gave that interview and said that Nate Diaz isn't a needle mover, it made me like support them more, because I knew, like, everyone on social media gives a shit about Nick and Nate Diaz. Whether you like them or hate them, you give a shit about them. Do you know what I mean? And if you give a shit, it means you're a needle mover. So I personally, when it comes to Nick Diaz, look, there's a couple of things. Firstly, if Dana White is going to have this perspective that, if you're a fan of mixed martial arts, you're a fan of Nick Diaz, you shouldn't want to see him fight because he's always out raving and he hasn't fought in God knows how long. Is he taking training seriously? You got BJ Penn fighting on your cards. You got Sanchez fighting on your cards. You got Carlos Condit and Matt Brown fighting just this coming weekend. Are you telling me that you telling me Sanchez emotionally, mentally is in a better place and physically is in a better place than Nick Diaz? Like, what is your criteria of judging where someone is, or when someone's capable of fighting and when they're not capable of fighting? If you don't think he reaches that criteria, then release him, because he's got a couple of fights left on his contract. He hasn't fought in 5 or 6 years or whatever, because he had that, oh shit, my computer just beeped. He had that ban for smoking weed, which he shouldn't have been banned for. So he hasn't fought in God knows how long. So now it's just a case of, if you don't want him to fight, if you don't think he should be fighting, the same way he was talking about who fought recently, and Dana White was like, he shouldn't be fighting, and I'm going to talk to him. Anderson Silva, precisely, right? So if you feel like he released Anderson Silva, right? So release Nick Diaz. He's not going to release Nick Diaz because he knows Nick Diaz is a guy that gets attention, and he puts asses in seats. He brings in ratings, whether it's a pay-per-view buy or it's a rating on ESPN Plus, the app, or whatever it is. So then the next question is this: if he fights, who are you going to match him up against? Because Nick Diaz is going to want main event money. So if you're going to pay him main event money, you got to put him in a main event. If you're going to put him in a main event, what is a viable main event against Nick Diaz? Is it someone that's just in the top 10? Or is it an actual 170-pound fucking killer, Kobe Covington or someone, because you know you're in no man's land when it comes to Nick Diaz. Like, is it just a name? Is it Nick Diaz just for having the sake of having Nick Diaz, you know, perform again, giving him an opportunity to fight again, or is it or if you're going to give him main event money, are you going to put him in a main event against a top 3, top 5 fighter? That's something that I'm not really kind of behind. I think he deserves the opportunity to fight again, but I think he should fight in a co-main event position or the main event of a oh shit, my phone's ringing. Or the main event in fuck's sake. Bear with me. That technical problems. That's all got picked up, by the way. Like where are you going to put him in the card? And is it financially viable doing that?
I mean, he loses to the top 4 guys in the 170-pound division anyway. Do you know what I mean? There's no way he's going to come back and beat, you know, Burns, Usman, or any of these guys. He's not
even top 10, not even top 4, like that much of a layoff. And what you said, I totally agree with. The game's moved on, and if you're just this guy that is able to box and is good off his back, I don't know if that's enough to
not
be
for
a
me,
top
not
10,
for me, not for
top
me
10
at all.
guy.
Not for me at all. But then, how can you have such a long layoff and be fighting someone in the top 10 anyway? That's not fair because
you're a
people
star,
in the
mate. That's the thing. This is where the combat sport is different to normal sport. Because if Arsenal as a team took off 4 years, they can't just come back and say, "All right, we'll be in the FA Cup final. Thank you very much." Do you know what I mean? Like, but when it comes to mixed martial arts and boxing, you can take time off and come back and. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think where it comes to his star value, I think he's got enough to say, like, let's give him even if it's a, I don't know, a Neil Magny, someone like that. He's a very capable, very decent, high quality fighter. You know, but he's never going to be the champ.
Yeah, of course.
Do you know what I mean? When it comes to Nate Diaz, on the other hand, I'm very surprised that you don't want to see him fight. So, you know, Nick Diaz had the operation around his scar, like on his eyebrows, and got rid of all his scar tissue and stuff like that. And that's something that Nate obviously suffers from, but I don't know if he's had the op for it. But I definitely want to see him fight. I still think he's kind of got something to give. And the same principle as Nick Diaz. I'm quite a fan of the fact that he doesn't just he kind of does what he wants when he wants. And I like it when fighters make a lot of money. I like it when fighters don't necessarily, you know, when they stop fighting, they don't have to work, sort of thing, because they've earned enough money to sustain them for the rest of their lives. And I think Nate Diaz has achieved that now. And now he's just taking fights that interest him, and fair play to him. I think he wants either Jorge Masvidal again or Conor McGregor. And I think that's where the problem is. I can't see the UFC making either of those fights anytime soon.
No, absolutely not. It's not smart for them to do it because Conor and Jorge are both in completely different lanes. Do you know what I mean? Nate can't just be like, "Oh, I want to fight Conor, I want to fight Jorge," because they're both fighting for titles. They're both, you know, moving towards a belt, whereas Nate's kind of like, you know, just trailing behind them, trying to catch these big money fights. But fair play to him. If he wants to make money, then get him on a big fight, get him to make his money, and get him out.
But
the actual title contention, I don't see it.
Here's the thing, like, do you notice how they haven't announced Carlos Condit? Sorry, not Carlos. Is on my mind now. How they haven't announced Kobe Covington against Jorge Masvidal. Like, that's a fight that they've been talking about for fucking phones ringing again for absolute ages, right? And they haven't made the fight yet. And the reason why I think they haven't made that fight yet is I think Jorge Masvidal wants the Nate Diaz rematch as well, because he knows that's the money fight, effectively. I think, personally, that's my little conspiracy theory.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I guess it depends where a fighter's mentality is at. You know, whether they want to be chasing the title, whether they want to be chasing money. You know, if they want money, then that doesn't always lead towards the title as well. You know, if Jorge's to fight Nate and make a good amount of money off of it, then he can probably chill out a little bit and doesn't have to necessarily push towards the title. But I think, you know, after his layoff and stuff like that, I think he go to the jungle or something, and then he came back and had a completely different mindset that he wanted to actually achieve something, because he his record is just full of split decision losses. You know what I mean? So he actually wanted to come back and fight for the title. So it's whether he wants to fight for the title or whether he wants to fight for money.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's more of a risk against reward thing when it comes to Covington. I think his team, the Kawas, look at that fight, knowing that it's a risky fight. It's not as an easy a proposition as a Nate Diaz fight is. And potentially a Nate Diaz fight could potentially earn him more money than a Kobe Covington fight would. I mean, personally, I like to see Jorge Masvidal fight Covington more than I'd like to see a rematch with Nate Diaz.
Mm-hmm.
But I think from their point of view, they could probably earn more money fighting Nate, and it'd be, like I say, not as a risky fight sort of thing.
If the first fight was more of a battle, do you know what I mean? If it was like super close, they went all 5 rounds for the BMF belt, and it was a 49-48 or whatever. Do you know what I mean? But if he just gets pulled because he's completely gashed open, he's clearly lost the fight. You do not deserve a rematch.
Yeah, we
Especially not
discussed
a rematch straight off the back.
Yeah, we discussed this on Twitter. I think you posted about it once, and we started talking about it, or someone else posted it, but we were discussing this on Twitter. I don't think like personally, I'm a fan of Nate Diaz, but I don't think he deserves a rematch against Jorge Masvidal, and he's in this weird position now because he's not in the rankings for either the lightweight or the welterweight rankings. He's not really a guy that anybody personally, I don't think, has enough to become a champion in either of those weight classes. So he's just in a position where he has these attraction type fights, and to pull that off, you need to have an attraction opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And in those 2 weight classes, you've not really got a lot of names that are star attractions,
Yeah, a lot of people that are fighting towards something, like the top 5 in both divisions are both fighting for the belt. They're both pushing towards that common goal, whereas Nate just kind of wants to. You can't just jump in and do that kind of thing.
Yeah, you know who actually here's an idea for a fight that I think might work for Nick Diaz. How about Tyron Woodley?
But then Woodley's coming off of how many losses?
Yeah,
I mean, he's got a better rap career.
They're of the same era, though, aren't they? Because I think, they were both at Strikeforce at a similar sort of time, weren't they? So similar sort of age as well. I think, yeah. But I don't know. It's interesting, but yeah, it's funny that you say that you wouldn't like to see him fight.
I would watch them. I would watch them, but I wouldn't. Similar to the Condit Brown fight. I would watch it, and I would be excited if someone won, and if there was a bit of violence and it was a good technical bout. But would I be emotionally invested? Probably not. I'm not a huge fan of either of them enough to want to watch them fight.
So who are you a fan of then? Who is like your favorite fighter at the moment, active, current?
I don't really have a favorite fighter. It's people.
You're a fan of the sport more than.
I'm a fan of the sport. Exactly. I'm a fan of the sport and people that want to put on a performance and people that want to do well in this sport. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to watch WWE. Do you know what I mean? I want to watch people that are pushing towards a title and fighting at a very, very high level and elite level fighters. I'm not really too fussed about the name or the rankings that come with it. Naturally, there's the standard people that you enjoy watching fight anyway. Israel Adesanya, perfect example, is a very, very good technical striker. He's also very enjoyable to watch. He makes it exciting, very similar to Anderson Silva used to be. With all the hand movements, and he's doing stuff that people don't necessarily see on a day-to-day basis, and stuff like that. But with regards to favorite fighter, I really don't have one or a select few. I just enjoy the sport.
Fair enough. Can't argue with that. So I think this fight this weekend is a prime example of that. Like Max Holloway against Calvin Kattar are 2 guys that obviously they have personalities, but they're not like massive, huge stars in the sport. But they're both well-respected individuals within the sport, and it's a fight that I'm proper excited about because I just feel like it's a really good style matchup. Both of them getting in the cage together. Cool. All right. Last thing that we discussed before recording today is Khabib. So we've got this weird sort of juxtaposition big word there, when it comes to Khabib, because he's saying that he's retired. He's not interested in fighting again. But sometimes he'll kind of leave the door a tiny little bit open, and it's a bit like Willy Woney sort of thing. And Dana White is adamant that he feels that Khabib put in a career best performance against Justin Gaethje, and he still has a lot more to give, and he wants Khabib to fight again. And it looks like he's trying to angle for Khabib. I think Dana wants Conor to win come next Saturday, and yeah, he wants he wants the Khabib rematch, because he knows that'll probably be the highest kind of pay-per-view in the UFC history. I've said that really shit, but I think people will understand what I'm on about.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So what do you think? So do you think Khabib will come back? Do you want him to come back? What is your feeling on all of this?
There's this is a completely separate topic, but you know, kind of online with it. You know, when fighters retire, you know, get out of the USADA testing pool, retire, go and chill out, do what you want to do. I hate this whole coming in, going out, coming in, going out, similar to Conor did on social media, and John Jones did, Leon Edwards did. Oh, I'm going to pull out of the rankings and all that kind of stuff. Either do it or don't do it.
It's just sorry to interrupt you there. One thing that I hate even more than that is when a fighter retires and then they carry on talking fucking shit like Henry Cejudo does. Like, that is the epitome of the worst type of retirement. But sorry, continue.
I know, 100%. I completely agree. That was going to be my next my next ball call that I was going to absolutely destroy him with, you know, because but when he retired, he was out of the rankings straight away. You know, Dana pulled him out of the rankings, said, fine, cool, no worries. But all of these fighters that are semi-retired or retired or whatever, that stay in the rankings, I haven't got time for that shit, you know. Either be in it or don't be in it. Do you know what I mean? If you've got stuff that you want to retire for, then settle down, retire, do what you got to do.
Yeah.
But if you feel like you still want to be fighting at a high level and stuff like that, then stay in the game. Why have you got to retire? If you still got fights in your contract, you don't need to retire. You know, are you retiring because you have a good amount of money saved up? You've saved up. You've got the house. You've got the car. You've got whatever you want to do. But no, that kind of stuff just pisses me off, to be honest with you. But if Khabib wants to come back and fight, I will watch it. I'll be more than happy to watch it. He's a very, very elite level fighter, a fantastic fighter. Always puts on a good performance. How, you know, albeit quite boring at times. You know, with the, you know, just linking up the legs and just playing with the arms and that kind of stuff. It's not always the fight that we want to see as fans, but it's always a very, very good fight. He always comes out, fights some big names as well. But in the division, there's so many more people that I want to see fight before it even comes to that. You know, Charles Oliveira, Tony Ferguson, Dustin Poirier, Conor, and Chandler obviously coming in, Dan Hooker. The whole division is just completely stacked. So where would Khabib fall into all of that, especially if he vacates the belt and then it gets put on another fight? That whole little tournament that's going to go on for the rest of the year is going to be, you know, I can see the belt changing hands quite a lot over the year, and then maybe Khabib comes back kind of December time or around that kind of like end of the year time to just take it back. But then what does he do? He comes back, he has his one fight, and then he just chips off again, and then it's vacant again, and then you have to get two people that have already slugged out for the whole year to now fight for the title again.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff
it diminishes the value of the title a little bit as well, doesn't it? If you've gone through a process of people scrapping it out for the belt, they get the belt, and then the old guy just comes back and beats the shit out of him and fucks off again, and then you're back to square one, aren't you? And then you just have in the back of your mind that the actual best guy actually isn't your champion at the moment, because the best guy is sitting in Dagestan somewhere, retired.
Yeah, I think GSP did that. He actually came back for one fight, got the belt, and then retired again.
Well, that was the middleweight belt when he became the champion.
Coming back fighting for one belt, and then just you're not going to have any title defenses. You're going to come back. You're going to fight. Oh look, I've got the belt now, and then you're just going to chip off again. You know, when John Jones vacated the light heavyweight title, and then it just got put on these two other fighters that both, you know, would have lost or lost to John Jones anyway. And then all of a sudden you've got, you know, I like Dan Blachowicz. You know, I think he's very, very good. He's a very good fighter, but. And then is he moving up and that kind of stuff? But I've completely digressed from the situation and the conversation that we were talking about retiring. But when people retire, I think they should retire. And I think if Khabib wants to come back, like I say, I will watch it. But I'm more than happy for him to retire and get out of the USADA testing pool as well.
Do you think he will come back this year?
I think, as I just said, I think he will come back at the end of the year and perhaps
Oh,
take
okay. Sorry. So that's what
the.
you think is going to
Yeah,
happen.
that's what I think is going to happen.
Wow,
He'll
where you are.
let all these guys fight each other, which they're going to do.
Mm.
And it's a very very stacked top kind of 6-7, and with Chandler coming in, his work could mix up the game a little bit. But I think it's such a stacked division. He doesn't really need to be there to kind of just hold on to the belt and beat all these guys anyway. But I see him coming back at the end of the year, definitely. What about yourself?
I think I think he will come back. Like, well, when he retired, I made a video about this, and I was adamant that no, that's it, that's him done. He's not coming back. But I think he was in an emotional state when he retired. It was almost like this release of fucking emotion, just raw emotions that night. Everything that he'd been holding in with his old man passing away and whatnot. Like, he just let it out. And in that, like, he made that decision prior to the fight while he was still very emotional, if that makes sense. So in the lead up to the fight, he decided he's going to retire after speaking to his mum and whatnot. But he wasn't his level balanced self at that point. Do you know what I mean? So now, a couple of months on and whatnot, I think I'm going to use the word ego. I think his ego, and I mean it in a good way, in a positive way. I think his ego won't allow him to see another man hold the belt that he believes it's still his because he's let go of it. It's not like someone beat him for it.
Mm-hmm.
So from a competitive point of view, I think he's going to start getting the itch, and he knows he put in one of his best performances ever. He's still in his prime. It's not like he's tailing off a little bit, and you can see a decline in how good he is, and he's looking at himself like I'm not as good as I used to be. He's still at his peak. So I think the itch is going to come back, and then when Dana White says to him, "This is how much I'm going to pay you to beat Conor McGregor up again," I think it will be a difficult proposition for him to turn down. So I don't think that there's going to be this tournament. I think it will be a case of Dana White has a conversation. Look, Dana White is going to time this conversation for after the Conor McGregor Dustin Poirier fight. If Conor McGregor wins, the conversation is going to be you against Conor McGregor in the summer. It will be your biggest payday ever. It will be the biggest UFC fight ever. Right, they're going to market it with, oh, Conor McGregor didn't take it seriously last time. Now he means business. He's back. He's in the right headspace. Blah blah blah. And I think if he comes back, it will be at kind of summertime. I can't see the UFC having a situation where they have this, where he turns down that that opportunity or that proposal from the UFC. I think then the UFC won't really knock on his door until he comes back himself and says, I want to fight again. And if that happens, then it's almost like he's already given back some of that bargaining power that he had to command the highest payday possible, because he's the one coming to the UFC saying, I want to fight again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm with you. But what happens theoretically? Obviously, a lot of people are very, very Conor McGregor orientated. But what happens if Conor takes the loss to Dustin Poirier? Then who fights then? Does
Then
Khabib fight?
I think you've got the rumor is Charles Oliveira is going to be fighting Gaethje.
Yep.
Chandler's fighting Dan Hooker. I think
Yep.
if Oliveira beats Gaethje, they'll be talking about Oliveira against Khabib, which I'd be really up for. Like, I'd be really
Yeah.
interested in that fight.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'd still think Khabib wins, because I don't think I'm going to trick myself into believing that a Khabib opponent has more of a chance just because I want it to be a closer fight. Do you know what I mean? Like, the one thing going back to one of the things that you said earlier, one thing that I was looking forward to when Khabib mentioned that he's retiring is not having such a dominant champion. Because on one hand, I enjoy watching someone being great, but on the other hand, I don't really enjoy watching a title fight when I kind of deep down know who's going to win the fight. It kind of takes excitement out of it for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
So like, if they're going to do this Dan Hooker against Chandler, whoever looks best out of that fight, and the Oliveira and Gaethje fight, you'd probably give that fight that person. You'd probably say to Khabib, do you want to fight the winner of either of these fights? At which point Khabib will probably say, no, I want GSP. And then it's a case of, are the UFC willing to facilitate that? Is GSP willing to fight Khabib at what weight class? It opens up a whole new, avalanche of questions, sort of thing. So I don't know, man. I don't know, but I can see if Conor wins. I think that's the most likely chance of Khabib fighting again is if Conor wins next week.
But then Habib was always very adamant that he never wanted to fight Conor again because of the the absolute
Yeah.
drama that we had pre-fight, and then obviously the even more of a drama that we had post-fight.
Yep.
You know, it caused so many issues, and they both got suspended for that as well.
Yep. Yeah,
So
no, I agree. He did. He was very vocal about not wanting to fight him, and then they even started talking about how if Conor thinks he deserves a fight, he should fight Justin Gaethje next because he's part of the kind of management team, and like, you know, Ali Abdelaziz manages both of them.
mhm.
But look, we're human, innit? Like even if you're a man of character, you've got morals and ethics and principles. If someone offers you tens of millions of dollars doing a job that you know you're very capable of doing quite easily, it's very it's very difficult to turn that down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. I think, you know, Habib culturally as well is not, he's never been very money orientated, and
Mm.
he's always made it very clear that he is not money orientated. Naturally, everyone has a price.
Yep.
Everyone has a price to what they'll do and how much they'll do it for. But I don't know. I don't see him coming. I don't, you know, if Dana goes there and says, right, I'm going to give you 10 million, then I don't, you know, what else does he need? Why does he need that money? Does he really need that money?
Here's the thing that you're missing though, isn't it? Because yeah, he's not very money orientated, but he's also a guy that's very kind of, he's quite a charity driven focused bloke. So
Yeah.
it's not about him buying 10 Ferraris. It might be a case of, look, this is $10 million or whatever the price is that you can really make change in your community with, and you can really help people with. And that might be the case. And it might be a case of, you know what, my dad always wanted me to get to 30-0, and I want to fulfill my dad's wishes and dreams, sort of thing. I
Yeah.
don't know, man. Obviously, you know, we're speculating here, and then it's a man that neither of us know personally.
Hmm.
So, you know, but I just feel like it just human nature. It's difficult to turn. If someone's offering you a fucking pot of gold, it's difficult to walk away from it. In
No,
my
definitely.
in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and I'm sure we could spend an entire hour talking about just Habib coming back and what he's
And the
going to do.
lightweight division, because it will be so exciting. If he doesn't come back, it will, I think, like you say, the next year will be so exciting watching the title just change hands back.
There's already three bouts that are in the works or already set that are just huge for this year as well. And I stand by my opinion of going. You know, the belt will change hands a few times this year.
Cool. All right, look, listen, I think that's us done for our list now. So before we go, is there anything you want to add or say or remind people of your Twitter and all of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I'm at FightingTalk2. If anyone wants to shoot me over a follow, and exactly the same name on YouTube as well. We've only got one video at the moment, but you know, we'll slowly make it up, and I'm sure I'll be a feature on the Battle Camp whenever you want to have me. You know, thank you very
Yeah.
much.
No, definitely. Thank you for joining me. And just quickly to the viewers, obviously, please, if you haven't already, subscribe, like, comment, all of that good shit. If you do comment, definitely, because I always respond. If you're not talking absolute shit, or if you're not like thick making stupid comments, then I won't respond. But if you say something logical and intelligent, I'll definitely come back to you. And I'll stick a link to Connor's YouTube channel in the description. So if you want to see or watch that podcast that he did earlier this week, and I definitely encourage you guys to do it, because it was very interesting. So thank you for joining us. We'll catch you next time. See you later. Cheers. Bye.